Welcome to Fashionista Activista, the podcast where style meets activism. I'm your host, Diana Diaz, and in each episode, we'll dive deep into the inspiring journeys of women business owners in Los Angeles, with a special spotlight on women of color. Join us as we celebrate the power, diversity, and creativity of underrepresented Latin women, youth, and queer communities through their captivating conversations and high-quality content. Hello, Fashionistas Activistas. I have a new fabulous guest here. Thank you, first of all, to Kaiser Permanente, New Economics for Women, and SoCal Gas for sponsoring this podcast and allowing for us to share stories like Laura Olvera's. Wait until you hear what she has to say. You're going to be inspired. Welcome, Laura. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this podcast. We want to, first of all, Laura, start by introducing you. Tell us a little bit about your background, your roots, where you started, you start back when you were a little girl, and, what exposed you to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, my earliest exposure of entrepreneurship was my father. So my father has always owned his own business. He specifically owned his business in real estate. And so he had a successful business through that. And so through being exposed with it, I realized what it took to sustain a small business, to sustain your own business, the sacrifice that was involved, but the deep, deep connection to your internal passion. And I think that's what ultimately fueled my desire to create that same kind of life for myself of creating my own business and creating my own life.
Well, I met you in about 2018 at Molcajete pop-ups. And I remember back then you had a very different look.
Yeah.
You had a different brand. Take us there.
Yeah, so my first brand was Agave Salt, and it was a resort wear brand, which was inspired by the Yucatan Peninsula styles and influences from there. And then COVID hit, and it kind of it became an opportunity for me to, reassess and figure out how did I want to pivot in my life, personally, and then also in my business. I think it was a point of reflection for a lot of people. And for me at that time, I was becoming a mom. I was pregnant, and then I had my baby during COVID. And it became also like a journey of rediscovering my sensuality and my sexuality during motherhood, experiencing motherhood with that. And so reclaiming my sexuality after embracing this new title of a mother. And so in doing that, I realized that this was an important topic, especially for women of color, especially for Mexican women, Latina women, like Latina community. I realized how important it was for that reconnection to take place. And in doing that and reconnecting with our sexual power, we can also become powerful in other areas of our life too.
And you pivoted really like big pivot. Yeah. You went from Agave Salt to Señora Calzones. You can find her at Señora Calzones on Instagram. But first of all, I love the name because I saw the name and it scared me a little bit, because it's a señora. You turn into a señora.
Yes.
And then you're very vulgarly saying calzones.
Yeah.
And I felt like I need to see what she's doing.
Yeah.
It forced me to look to see what you were doing. And tell us a little bit about why that name, Señora Calzones.
Yeah. So that name in particular, it was actually at my father's funeral. I was at, after the funeral services take place, usually there's familiar gatherings, like you'll go and eat meals together, you'll reminisce memories. And during that time, I reconnected with a cousin of my father's, and she was telling me about how my grandmother and her mother, who was my grandmother's sister, when they were just starting to figure out ways to make money across the border, when they crossed the border, one of the ways in which she learned to make money was that she would import calzones. So she would go to Mexico and to the factories, and she would purchase in bulk the underwear garments. And then she would come here to Los Angeles, and she soon became known as Señora Calzones. And so I was like, oh my God, that name. I love that name.
That's so
How can
cool.
I'm going to pin that. I'm going to keep it. And I know I'm going to use it someday, somehow. And so after giving birth and like I said, trying to figure out where I was in my new body.
Fabulous body, but
Thank you. Likewise, darling.
it takes one to know one.
But yeah, so learning, this is a new body, this is a new vessel. And even at that time, I remember, and I tell people, I had a lot of people acknowledge saying like, oh, you lost the weight so fast, or oh, you look amazing, whatever. But I didn't feel amazing. And it just goes to show how it doesn't matter what size fluctuation there is or what happens. Ultimately, the challenge is within our minds, right? And the perspective that we have of ourselves. And so I realized at that moment that even though maybe on the outside I looked like everything was the same or okay, internally I didn't feel the same. And so I dove deep into this self-journey experience of like reconnecting with myself as a woman and my sexuality and my sexual liberation.
And you became Señora Calzones.
Yes.
Even when you're getting dressed or in the morning when you look in the mirror, at least for me, I embrace vanity. I think it's so important to feel good, to look in the mirror and look good and inspire yourself and really love yourself. And that's what your creations do. I had a session with you, but tell us about what you started creating.
So it started with the calzones, right? Like I started creating my own designs and then also offering ready-made items that I would purchase wholesale, which is still part of my business. But now we've kind of grown into experiences. And those experiences look like boudoir shoots, which have been really successful for us. My husband is an amazing photographer. And we had been talking about it for a long time, pretty much since I started the brand about 4 years ago now, that, we wanted to offer that. But the timing just wasn't right in terms of, our baby, because we both have our little baby and we don't have a lot of support from family in terms of baby care. So figuring out, what would that look like so that we could both take part in it and create this amazing experience for our clients. So now we got to a point where he does do some of the boudoir shoots, but I also recently partnered with a female photographer who's Yaki Hernandez. She's incredible as well. Because I knew that also, going into a boudoir shoot, it's a very personal experience and you're showing yourself, you're revealing yourself in a way and you're being seen in a way that's very vulnerable.
That's scary.
Not just literally, but also emotionally too. And so I realized that it was very important to have a female photographer also available, because there's some people who maybe only feel comfortable with a female photographer versus a male photographer. And so
that would be me. Yeah, no, man. And you know what? Curiously enough, like when I saw your booking, and I'm so supportive of you, and I love following you and seeing your content, and you did this boudoir shoot, I saw the price, and I thought that's reasonable for a photo.
mm-hmm.
But and I was so nervous to book it, but it was my birthday. Remember?
Yeah, I
my
do.
birthday. I was like,
yeah,
my birthday. I need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Let me try this. And I reached out to you and I was like, but I have cellulite, but I don't want to show this. And you were like, don't worry, I'm going to make you feel beautiful. Don't worry, I'm going to make you look beautiful. You're going to be so comfortable. I said, well, the photographers, and you said, it's my husband, is my partner. And I thought, honestly, I felt like, my God, like this is a power couple. And you're both supporting each other.
Yeah.
And you telling me about his experience because he's a well-established, well-known photographer.
Yeah.
And that sells antique cameras too.
Yeah, he sells vintage.
I realized that this was serious business, and I got excited about it, and the experience was incredible. Can you share with our vendors or listeners what the experience is like?
I mean, I feel like it's so unique to every person, but I think what we try to create is, we try to make everybody feel special, celebrated. That's always like a core word that I think of when I think about our boudoir shoots. Everybody should walk away feeling celebrated. They should walk away feeling special, feeling like a renewed love with themselves. That's what I really
That's why I
create.
Yeah. Felt so glamour. Tell us about the robe that you're wearing, that this is one of your...
Yes, this is one of my creations. So these are available in all the colors of the rainbow with like custom trim, custom color combinations, whatever you like. But this is definitely one of the items that I get the most requests for is our reina robes, as you can see, because they inspire everyone to feel like a reina.
Look like a reina. You look like a total reina, everything. And we walk into the boudoir photo shoot and we see a couple of racks full of all of your creations. Tell us what someone can find in your creations.
Well, that's kind of where I guess the boudoir shoot begins, like the experience begins a week or 2 weeks before the actual shoot, right? So I actually am in communication with people who have booked and I get to know them. I get to know their likes, their dislikes, parts of their body that they would really like to be enhanced, parts of their body that they feel like they're a little conservative about, and that's completely fine. So getting to know what it is that they really want to be seen or reveal in the shoot. And then from there, I curate the wardrobe. Some of the items I do custom make myself. Some of them I purchase for them if they have like a particular style or a look that they want that I don't have, then I'll purchase that. But most of the time they pick the really unique handmade stuff because they know that they're only going to be able to have access to that through me and through the boudoir shoots.
And that nobody has it.
And nobody has it.
So when I got there, I know you picked different locations throughout LA and you're a location scout as well, because the locations that you've picked recently, I've seen, they're so glamorous, so fancy and exceptional. Like, I want my bedroom to look like.
I know.
So when I showed up, it was an old hotel.
Yeah.
There's residents there.
Yeah.
And several of the rooms are decorated really beautifully. And you greeted me with cookies and drinks and snacks and the racks, and you allowed me to select.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple of changes, and the session is usually about 30 minutes.
It's about 30 to 40 minutes. We allocate about 40 minutes just for time to change, so that it's not feeling too rushed. Because in the whole span of a photo shoot, it is pretty quick. It's like maybe total 20 minutes in front of a camera, like shooting time. But, getting to feel comfortable, changing, eating, drinking, cheesing, like all of it. It's about 40 minutes.
And you know what? The experience, because I experienced it personally, it's so personal. It's so, like, I fell more in love with you, Laura, because you embraced me. You were so welcoming. You took a couple shots of me. I wasn't even drinking. And it was the whole experience was beautiful because I did feel like a goddess. I did feel like a queen. Thank you. I know you get to make a lot of women feel like this. What has that been like?
Oh,
tell me about those. You don't have to say their names, but
no, it's incredible and it's powerful because really at the root and the heart of all of this, right? The brand itself is all about making people feel like they deserve to feel this. The feeling right now, right? That makes you emotional. It's like acknowledging that, yes, I am worthy of being praised, of feeling loved, of like all these amazing, yummy, good feelings that we pour into other people. Like, I'm deserving of that for myself. And so that's really what the brand is about and what I'm trying to create through the experience.
Tell me an experience that really inspired you, like a person, a client.
Oh, it's so hard because they're all like so inspiring. I think there was one client recently who, it just happened this past weekend, actually. Her son is autistic and he's on the spectrum. And she had asked me in advance saying like, unfortunately, I really want to do this experience, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to have like baby care or like a babysitter to watch him because he does need support with having someone watch him. And he's older. I think he was like maybe 12 or just around that age. And she's like, would it be possible at all for him to come? Is that okay? And I was like, if you're comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it.
I'm a babysitter too, girl. I'm making me calzones. I make you babysit.
Give me all the roles, I could do it all. So, but as a business owner,
like you're doing backflips,
all of it. Bring it on, like your makeup artist, your hairstylist, all of it. You make it happen. And so I told her, I was like, of course I can. Like, please do not feel ashamed for asking. Wow. Please do not feel ashamed. Like, let's make it happen. Like, you are more than deserving of this. How great would it be for your son to be able to see you celebrate yourself in this way, And so they came and like she was looking great and she had this time the boudoir shoots included makeup and waxing before, not waxing, the week before, but they had makeup and hair the day up. And so he was actually like with her through that experience too. And so she was telling me when they arrived how he was like already celebrating her, like when they were doing her hair and her makeup, he was complimenting her, and she just was like crying the whole day, trying not to mess up her makeup. And then they got there and he was like, Mom, I really like that, and he was like involved in the process of making her feel special. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, how can you imagine as a mom? Like, I mean, you don't expect that. We don't look for that for affirmation from our children, but like for him at that age,
12-year-old.
Yeah. To acknowledge her in that way was really beautiful.
It's powerful.
It was very powerful. It was very beautiful. And I just was so happy that, we took a very small part in that experience.
And how did she leave when she left?
Oh, she was radiating.
All the women, when I left, I'm skipping. I was like, remember at the end, I was out.
Yeah, she's radiating. Everybody went out to go get dinner, like everybody was just super high. And yeah, I mean, like imagine if we could do that for ourselves every day. Radiate on that level every day. Like what could we accomplish? What could we do? And I think that's where really the messaging is, right? It's beyond the fashion. Yes, the fashion is a tool, but really it's like what it inspires, what it instills in people through the experience, through the fashion. That is what's powerful. That's what they really get to keep, And
one thing that you told me when I went, when I was taking the pictures, because at first I was a little apprehensive. I was like, no, like, I don't want to be too crazy.
I think you told me, you're like, I'm a school counselor.
These photos are for you.
Yeah.
You told me. And I'm not sharing them with anyone. You don't have to share with anyone. And when you get older, you're going to see these pictures. You're going to really appreciate.
Yeah.
And when you told me that, I was like, all right then.
Before we continue our inspiring conversation, we want to acknowledge our sponsor, New Economics for Women. New helps individuals and families improve their income, wealth, assets, social, and educational status across generations. Their focus on education, entrepreneurship, and home ownership prepares communities to thrive. Thank you, New. Now let's get back to our conversation filled with fashionista flair.
Celebrating, yourself, your femininity, your vanity, your sexiness, your body. And it's so amazing that you're doing that. And I'm glad that I got to do it with you because I know you and, you provided a really beautiful experience. Mm-hmm. And I shared with my boyfriend, my partner, and he uses that photo as his screensaver. Yeah. Like what Diana Diaz calls, it pops up.
Your nalgas?
My nalgas, like, thank you so much. And I know that you creating this experience for the women also inspires you.
Yes, it does very much. It's like a reminder for me.
Because I've seen how your styling and your content has evolved.
Yeah.
Since you started doing the boudoirs.
Yeah.
And that's the person that came to mind. Wow, she must be really inspired. Aside from the boudoirs, you have other projects. You also do fashion shows. Tell us about that.
Different things,
Tell us about the fashion shows.
Yeah. So the fashion shows, which I did one for Goddess Mercado too. No, I did one for Queer Mercado and one for Goddess Mercado, right? So yeah, the fashion shows are just a cool way to kind of show up in the community and just make people think, definitely the designs. I think every time I've shown at both of those, it's caused a little bit.
I love it.
Chaos, which is great. That's the intention, right? Is that it does create people to question, to think, to start conversations around this. Yeah, I mean, every time I do a fashion show, there's always something that comes up, something that people don't like or they're not sure or whatever. And I'm like, that's great. All the conversations are welcome. They are all welcome. Let's talk about it. Yeah, all the complaints too. Bring the complaints.
And we had to address it.
Yeah.
And in order for us to be able to address it, we have to be well informed and we have to be confident and tactful in how we approach it. But we got a complaint. Somebody said that, there was too much skin and that we didn't give an advance notice. And we addressed it because we did give an advance notice. And there was the amount of skin that was shown is what, the people are wearing right now or not wearing, right? Except that the designs are suggestive.
Yeah.
It is, look at what you're wearing. It's kind of sheer, all the ruffles.
I mean, it's over the top, right? But that's the idea, is that sometimes you have to be over the top in order to find your happy medium. If you don't experience the extremes, how are you going to even know where you fall in that, So it's funny. There's always, I recently did you went to the Chicano Elegance.
I loved it.
Okay, so the Chicano Elegance.
I saw a lot of nalga there, which I love.
Yeah, I love nalgas. I realized now that's like my favorite, I think, focus is the nalgas.
Who doesn't love nalga?
Yeah, I don't.
Women love nalga, men love nalga, babies love nalga, everybody loves nalga. You even had a piñata. You have a lot of fun. So tell us about...
I literally had a nalga.
Tell us about the Chicano Elegance.
Yeah.
Elvira is amazing. She is fire.
Yeah. Talk about a fashionista activista.
Yeah.
I was like, you have not had her out on here. You need to. So first of all, I have to definitely give a shout out to the piñata. So the piñata was created by Candy Girl Piñatas. My friend Caro, who lives in Oregon, she shipped that nalga down to me.
That
nalga cost me $75 in shipping.
Where's
bring down here? It's in my house. It's there.
That's awesome. I want to hit that nalga.
Oh my gosh.
So cool.
Yeah, so cool. She customizes piñatas really for art, not for you to actually like.
But what about the outfits that you put?
Yeah, so one of the outfits in particular was it was supposed to be inspired by the Adelitas. So it was inspired by the Adelitas. And the model, the other thing that people don't really realize until they look on my page and they read the background stories is that the models that I choose are very intentionally chosen.
Yeah.
And so the model that I chose for that particular look, she actually has a background in sex work and in stripping. And so she's a stripper, like she's an exotic dancer. And I loved her aesthetic. I loved her vibe. Like when I saw her page, she's beautiful, but she's a fighter. Like you see her and the way she carries herself, like she's a fucking badass. That she knows. That's the other thing too. I realized too, as I've been in communication, I style for or I design pieces for people that are in sex work or do exotic dance work. That community of people knows how to hold boundaries like no other, because they've had people overstep their boundaries, their body boundaries in so many ways. They are so clear about what they accept and what they do not accept and what's okay and what's not okay. And she alludes that in her body. And so when she walked out onto the catwalk, she had this gorgeous blue piece that I had with this bedazzled, like mariachi charro hat. And the style was like, it had like macrame kind of inspired fringe coming off the top. And she just rocked it. And people took pictures, and the first thing that people said was they criticized her breasts, that they weren't asymmetrical, that she looks like a sex worker, like a stripper. And they said, well, joke's on you. She actually is a stripper. Like, and what's the shame in that? If that's her chosen line of work and it's consensual, then that is her own life to live. Why are we here to judge that, And so so I realized that. But again, I welcome all the conversations. I welcome all the conflict, because it's through that we have these conversations and we open up minds and we go down paths about different topics and normalizing things and breaking stigmas,
Yeah. And that puts you in a very vulnerable position, because in addressing these issues, you have to put yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very brave. That's very brave and powerful as well. And I celebrate you for that, because I know that's not easy. So you have haters.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, me too. Everyone here has had what has that been? I ask you about that because there are a lot of the vendors that are afraid to put themselves out there as a brand. And I say the way you're going to get more followers, the way you're going to build your brand is by putting yourself out there, your story, your vulnerability, because you got something to say, you got something to sell, and no one's going to buy it if you don't say it, if you don't show it. And people are afraid of the haters.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that. How do you deal with that, with the haters, especially, with lingerie, with, your name, you're really putting it out there.
Yeah, and I think more so too as a mom too, right? Like I get a lot of people that bring that topic up too. So I think my best suggestion that I can make for people to build their courage, build their defense, is to be 1000% clear on what your brand messaging is and what you stand for. Because through that, it will arm you with what you need to be able to not care about shit like that, or communicate clear what your purpose and your intention is and what you're offering. And the more clear you are about that, the more you're going to pull in your audience that's for you, and the more support and you're going to get from those people that are meant to find you.
And what about the haters? You just dismiss them?
I just dismiss them.
I think you ignore it. And I've learned that when you have haters, you're doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of women tell me, oh, but they're going to copy me, or they copied me. And Woody, how do you feel about that? Because I have seen a kind of resurgence in the boudoir scene, and even in the robes from, a local community, people that are copying you because they see how important, how valuable it is.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think, at the end of the day, nobody is me.
Right.
Nobody is my story.
Awesome.
No one is going to share it the way that I do, as much as they try. No one is going to have the same exact touch that I do. And so because of that, it doesn't bother me. I think when I see that, it doesn't affect me. If anything, it assures me that I'm doing something right.
Yeah. You heard it here. There is not and will never, ever be another Señora Calzones.
Oh, for sure.
Hell no. And with that, one question that I like to ask all the guests. You heard me say the huevona days. And my mom said, no sea huevona. And it's not like that you're being lazy or that, you're going to practice self-care. It's those days where you do feel like an imposter. Those days where you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Why do I even want to go? I don't want to get up at this time. I don't want to go meet with that person. A podcast, really, for what? What do I get out of that? I'm wasting my time. I'm leaving my kids. Those are called huevona days. And every vendor, every person that we've interviewed has shared, like it's a real feeling. What do you do? How do you get out of those huevona days? How do you work on your mindset so that you could get up and really execute and continue building? And no huevona.
What has helped me a lot to move through that is to remove the expectation. Because I think it's really hard, especially if you're driven. If you're becoming a self-owned entrepreneur, like, you are driven, right? Like, there's no doubt about that, because you're choosing to go down a path that most people do not choose to go down. Right. It's like unimaginable challenges that you can't imagine, like all of it.
Disappointment.
Yeah, like all of it.
No pay.
So you obviously want to have all these things happen, and like faster is better usually, right? Like that's usually the desire. You want I'm sure you have a plate full of to-dos and you just want it all done now. But it's like, if you remove that expectation and you accept that things are going to happen and unfold as they need to, when they need to, in all God's divine timing, then it takes you out the huevona, because you trust more in yourself and you trust more in what you're doing.
You believe in magic.
Yeah, you do.
And the divine. I do. And you are magic.
Oh, yeah.
And you're bringing a lot of magic to a lot of women. I want to remind you how beautiful you made me feel on that day.
Oh.
And I didn't feel vulgar. I felt empowered. And I can't wait to look back on these photos and celebrate the fact that I was brave enough to try and encourage anyone listening. It is important that we invest in each other, invest in ourselves as well. And being part of Señora Calzones boudoir shoots is an investment in you, but also an investment in a powerful, inspirational Chicana Latina that is creating change and empowering women and helping them heal. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Where can we find you? Give us your platforms here.
Instagram, Señora Calzones. TikTok, Señora Calzones, and my website, www.senoracalzones.com.
When is your next fashion show so that they can come out?
I don't know. The last person that left, we were talking about February. So I think February for Valentine's.
Okay, let's do it. And also your new fashion line. is coming out too. How often do you put out new lines? Every season?
I'd say like 3 times. Yeah, every season, 3 to 4 times a year.
So be on the lookout. The styles change every season.
Oh, we're starting a subscription box.
I'll sign up. And the next boudoir shoot.
That's going to be mid-January. So
get ready.
Subscribe on the website so that you get first dibs because they fill up fast. They sell out for sure.
And tag your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your loved one. Let them know what you want for Christmas. You want a Señora Calzones boudoir shoot. I promise you won't be disappointed and you'll be very inspired. Thank you so much for joining us. Te amo. You're amazing. So proud of watching your journey.
Con todo mi corazón, we want to thank New Economics for Women, SoCal Gas, and Kaiser Permanente, and to you, our beautiful listeners, for being the heartbeat of Fashionista Activista. Vamos adelante with more stories, more laughter, and moments of inspiration that knit our communities ever so close. Make sure to subscribe and follow us on social media. Hasta la próxima, goddesses.